Well, the live local late breaking that led our show at 10 o'clock here on 104.5 at Team ESPN Radio comes directly from Pat Leonard, New York Daily News, a friend of the program, and has been on our show many, many times throughout this NFL season. And
we owe Pat a little something probably down the road here.
We'll take him to lunch when we see him at camp for sure. All right, for sure, unless he makes a trip to Albany, which I doubt, although back in the day, those beat writers, truth be told, they loved coming to Albany. Some of them did, not all of them, but some of them did. They liked going to Saratoga, and it was a lot of fun for 16 years. But, Pat, thanks for a few minutes. We appreciate it. And I know you're reporting this morning that all roads, at least right now, indicate it's not official, not a done deal, but are pointing toward Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator of the New England Patriots, being the next head coach of the Giants. Good morning, Pat.
Correct, Roger. Chris, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
No
and
problem.
Everything you just said there is true. From my reporting the last 24, 48 hours, been able to conclude that Patricia, I was going to say Patriots, Patricia is the Giants guy, and that all indications are, from what I understand and what I've learned, is that he actually prefers the Giants to the Lions job that was reportedly a done deal, but Gary Myers and I have been writing for a couple of days that was not the case, that it wasn't done, that he was going to join Bob Quinn in Detroit, as people assumed after the interviews over the weekend. And I think what this is about really is the Giants hired Dave Gettleman as GM, and everyone said, wait a second, we're not making the wholesale changes you promised to John Mara. But this isn't about hiring a young GM with different ideas and letting him make the Giants whatever he wants. This was about hiring a seasoned veteran general manager who was familiar with the Giants and ran the Carolina Panthers and was going to come in and return the Giants to what they once were. It's not about being a new franchise. It's about being the successful franchise that the Giants identify with, and that's strong defense, that's running the football, that's high character, that's dominating the line of scrimmage, and Patricia and the Giants find themselves to be a perfect fit. But as you said, nothing is official, and nothing can be official as long as the Patriots remain alive in the playoffs.
Yeah, unless the Lions go in a different direction, then will you think we could connect dots at some point and go, okay, Lions just made a move. They've got their guy. Patricia's still sitting there. Nothing's going to happen until after they're eliminated or after they win or lose the Super Bowl. But we could connect the dots and say Patricia to the Giants.
Right. So I'm saying Patricia to the Giants, but you make a good point in that twice in the last 3 years, you've had Dan Quinn, the Seattle defensive coordinator, and Kyle Shanahan, the Falcons offensive coordinator, where by the time they got to the Super Bowl, even though teams aren't even allowed to, quote unquote, have an agreement on a contract with a new head coach, let alone actually sign a contract, it was the world's worst kept secret that Quinn was going to the Falcons and Shanahan going to the 49ers. And so the Giants actually are also allowed to, even though you're not technically allowed to make an agreement, you can meet with your preferred candidate again the week prior to Super Bowl week if the Patriots end up going that far, as long as the Patriots okay it. So that would be the next time the Giants could sit down with Patricia if they wish prior to making it official.
Here's the only thing I was surprised when you broke with this story today. If you would have told me who's going to be a front runner and what the name would be, I would have picked one of the two New England Patriots coordinators. But for me, it would have been Josh McDaniels. I guess I'm surprised that it's Patricia.
No, that's a legitimate question and point. What the issue here with McDaniels is, there's a lot of things to his situation. First of all, he is the heir apparent in New England. So the Giants are not only competing, quote unquote, with the Indianapolis Colts, the other vacancy still there for a team that interviewed McDaniels, but also for him possibly staying in New England. If Tom Brady intends to play for 3 more seasons, does he want to stay up there, continue to win, and as Belichick's likely heir apparent, take over in New England? And then also there were the reports that the Bears had interviewed him, but then once they hired Matt Nagy, the Colts were in on Nagy as well. And so with him off the board, McDaniels becomes their top choice. They have Andrew Luck, which is better than what the Giants have right now, a quarterback if he is healthy. Also Jacoby Brissett, who McDaniels started developing in New England before he was traded. And you also have the fact that even though John Mara prefers and said ideally this candidate would have a head coaching experience or at least extensive coordinator experience, McDaniels' experience in Denver wasn't a good one. Now, of course, Belichick, didn't have a great experience his first round either as a head coach. But you have Patricia, a guy who has 6 full years under his belt, managing a defense no matter what players Belichick traded, no matter who was a part of that defense or injuries. He always crafted a game plan, a winning game plan together. And they've been among top 10 defenses since he joined the defensive side of the ball in New England. I believe it's 11 of 12 seasons, or 10. I think it's 11 of 12 seasons, top 10.
Pat Leonard with us here, a reporter for the New York Daily News. All of his background, all of his work from the last 24 hours, which came to a surprise to me anyway, that Patricia may be the guy for the Giants. You can go to his Twitter page, at PLeonardNYDN, and you'll certainly see some of the links that Pat has included of Gary Myers' work along the way here as the Giants look for their next head coach. Pat, I've tried to convince myself and anybody else who will listen throughout this coaching search that whoever the Giants hire, it will give us a good indication of what they may do in the draft. Do you believe that if they hire a defensive guy, that they may not necessarily take a quarterback at 2, they may move back and try to fill some of the other holes on this roster? There are many of them. Or if they hire an offensive guy, then okay, for sure they're going for a Rosen or Darnold, whoever's left on the board.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to that answer, and it's a good question. So I still think there's a stronger chance they draft a quarterback than not. Just because they're going for a defensive head coach doesn't mean that they wouldn't draft a quarterback there. Of course, Patricia, as head coach, has to bring along an offensive coordinator, somebody who the Giants are confident can develop Eli's successor, because that's a major part of this. Not to mention fix their offense right away, because they've had trouble scoring points, especially the last 2 years. I think the fact that they need to develop an offense and develop a quarterback are important. But more than anything, Dave Gettleman said it at his press conference, too. You're looking for a head coach to be a CEO in the way that he properly manages the entire team. And the Giants have been burned just by Ben McAdoo, who had an offense going well for 2 years as coordinator, but once they gave him the head coaching title, he ended up having too much on his plate, and the offense suffered for it. So when you look at McDaniels or Pat Shurmur in Minnesota, giving both of them the job or coming to an agreement with one of them would mean dipping into that same water. And perhaps the Giants here have decided, listen, Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, that was the Giants. That's the blueprint, the 2 Super Bowls, 86 and 90, a defensive head coach. We've hired 5 offensive head coaches since then. It's time for us to get back to our roots. And don't forget, Ron Rivera, even though Gettleman didn't hire Ron Rivera in Carolina, he won with Rivera, got a 15-1 team to the Super Bowl with the Panthers in 2015. So he has experience managing and building and bolstering a roster coached by a defensive head coach. The last thing I would say, at the number 2 pick, I think because Gettleman prioritizes running the football and, dominating on the lines, it's not out of the question, like you said, maybe to take Saquon Barkley, who a lot of people think is the best overall pick in the draft to improve the running game, or you could end up trading down and taking a promising offensive lineman or a guy like Chubb from NC State on the D-line. I'm not saying they will do that. I still think quarterback's more likely. But I think all of those are important questions to ask with Gettleman at the helm.
Hey, one more coaching question from me, Pat. Pat Leonard, New York Daily News, with us as he's reporting that the road right now is leading toward Matt Patricia becoming the next head coach of the Giants. Would there be a phone call placed to Nick Saban after Bruce Arians yesterday threw out on national radio that if there's one sole opening that Saban would leave Alabama for, it would be the Giants? We know that there was some interest from Saban a couple of years ago in the Giants job. Do you think the Giants do any due diligence here and just reach out to Saban to see if there's any possibility?
The due diligence never hurts, but I don't think it's a possibility for 2 reasons. One, of how expensive it would be to buy out his lucrative current contract, just to negotiate with him and then pay him more to make him your head coach. Not to mention that he has total control of Alabama. And if they hadn't hired a GM yet and they were hiring Nick Saban to run their entire franchise, that would make a lot of sense to me, or more sense. You can make the same argument for if they were going to get Belichick too, but with Gettleman at the helm, I find it hard to believe that Nick Saban, that they would be spending that amount of money to then bring him in and coach and really have no final say on personnel. That wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. Nothing is impossible in this day and age, of course, but I actually floated the name, I don't know this for sure, but a name that would make sense to me as Patricia's potential offensive coordinator. I don't know if he wants to leave Alabama, but Brian Daboll just won a national championship with Tua at the helm in the second half there for the Crimson Tide. He's been an OC in the NFL before, and all of his offenses have run the ball significantly. There may be a match there between Patricia and Daboll with Gettleman running the show. So they may dip into the Crimson Tide pool, even if it's not Saban.
Well, Pat, as you know, up in Albany, we're far enough away from the situation where we can allow personal interest to dictate who we want the next head coach to be. And because Matt Patricia played at RPI and coached there briefly as a grad assistant, Roger's all on Matt Patricia.
I'm good with that. Yeah. I'd say
no question. I figured you guys would be. And he was, as you guys are saying, too, like he was on the conference call the other day from New England, and he said a lot without saying anything, really. But, conducts himself very professionally. They rave about him up in New England. There's a reason he's been there since 2004, and they haven't let him leave. So an RPI product, local to you guys, and from a small city of Sherrill, New York. So, the Giants are looking, well, it wouldn't be keeping him in the state, but as far as the New York label, that would definitely suit him.
And it sounds like he may be good with the media, certainly better than Ben McAdoo.
There is no question about that.
Hey, Pat, great job of reporting. We'll be following, and I know it's busy. A lot of people reaching out to you since you broke this story this morning, and we appreciate you joining us here on Big Board Sports ESPN Radio in Albany.
Yeah, thanks so much, as always, Roger and Chris. Take care.